Alright guys, BLM here, back with a new video, and we're back finally talking about a new season of Survivor US. We're going to be talking about Survivor 41. And essentially through this video, I will be talking about pretty much my thoughts on everything that we currently know about the season. Now first up, I will give all credit to Redmond from Inside Survivor for all of the information I'm going to be talking about here. Definitely the most trustworthy source on Survivor casting and production, all that stuff. So a lot of the information that we're going to be talking about here does come from him. Now there are a couple other rumors that I will be talking about through this video that are not nearly as secure, and I will preface that before talking about those things. But let's start off the video with talking about really probably the biggest piece of news here, and that is that we do have a cast. We have 18 people. This will be an 18-person season with no real theme. Now, unlike my other cast reactions where I went through each person by person, I won't be doing that here, largely because we have very little information on these people. This isn't like an all-star season where obviously I know these people from their previous seasons and know them from following them after season on their social media and everything. I don't have that with this cast. I'm not going to stalk these people that supposedly just filmed the Survivor season. So really, a lot of these people I don't know much about outside the information that we were literally given. And I think just from looking at the cast right away, you can clearly tell that the diversity mandate that CBS has put in place has been executed here. I believe there are 11 people of color on an 18-person cast here. Again, well over the 50% that CBS strived for. But even beyond racial diversity, you can also very clearly tell diversity in terms of age. I think that's another thing. Like, we do have 3 20-year-olds on this cast, which means that we're officially at the point where there are people on Survivor that are younger than the actual show itself, which is kind of insane. But to contrast that, we also have a decent amount of relatively old people, at least for Survivor. I mean, we have 2 people over the age of 50. We have another 3 in their upper 40s. That's 5 people there already. That's almost a third of the cast over the age of 45. Like, that's again another pretty big change up from what we've had with recent seasons. And really, just in general, this cast feels relatively old. Like, while there are massive outliers, again, there's the 3 20-year-olds, there's a 23-year-old, 2 26-year-olds, a 28-year-old, but really over half the cast is above the age of 30, which feels, again, relatively old for Survivor, which I think overall is just a good thing. I mean, the racial diversity, all the diversity in Survivor, I think is overall a benefit to the show. I think when you have too many of the same sort of people, it just creates very easy alliances and increases the chance of groupthink. But to be honest, with the recent Survivor seasons, I don't think they've really had that many issues with diversity. I mean, they definitely have in the past, but I think like looking at IOI, looking at Edge of Extinction, looking at David vs. Goliath, I don't feel like diversity has been their issue with recent casting. I feel like really there's a bigger issue for Big Brother, which hopefully we see some change in. But for Survivor 41, again, it's a nice thing to see, which is an increase from IOI, but IOI was already a relatively diverse cast as well. So I already think Survivor was heading in the right direction in terms of that already. I'm just hoping that these people are here to play. I think that's the one major thing, is that you can have as diverse of a cast as possible. If these people aren't here to play, then it's still not going to be that interesting of a season. I mean, for me, the example is Cook Islands, like the most diverse season in Survivor history. Cook Islands for me is a pretty boring season because a lot of those people weren't there to play. A lot of those people were kind of just filler in terms of casting. I feel like casting has done a much better job in recent years to where I feel like these people are here to play. Like, I feel like it would be very surprising to me if they cast these people that aren't going to play the game at this point, considering that's what Survivor has now become so focused on, is the game. And I feel like with the exception of part of the Ghost Island cast, I feel like recent casting has cast people that are playing very hard. And with that and the diversity added on top of that, I do have a lot of confidence in this cast, even though, again, really not getting that much just from these images and bios. And because of that, I'm not going to be making a winner pick here. I'm not going to be selecting who I'm going to be rooting for on the season just yet. Again, very little information to really be doing those things. I'll be saving that for my cast assessment once the true preseason starts. But for now, again, just looking at the cast here, I feel like there's a lot of potential here. We just got to see how the season ends up playing out. But even outside of the cast, we do have a lot of other rumors coming from Redmond that, again, I feel like are probably true if they are coming from him. So I might as well talk about those as well. First up, we do know that the pre-jury was sent home immediately after getting voted out. Obviously, if you don't know, typically what happens on Survivor is that the pre-jury gets sent to Ponderosa after getting voted out, and then once the jury phase of the game starts, those people are shipped out onto a vacation. That did not happen this time. Obviously, I'm assuming COVID had a major factor in that. But I do feel like sending them straight home is a curious choice. Now, just from following the Survivor Reddit, there is already some information out there that is very spoilery about one of these players based on their social media activity during the course of the season when it was filming. That, again, pretty much makes it almost guaranteed that this person is a pre-jury boot, which I don't like that aspect of it. I mean, that's always the risk that you're going to take, and that's a lot of the reason why I'm pretty sure they've always had this Ponderosa trip in the past to avoid spoilers like this. But obviously, that's something I don't particularly like. Like, I get it under COVID restrictions that they can't take these people on a vacation, but maybe they could have just isolated them in another location within Fiji until everyone shipped out on their own. But I mean, realistically, like them sending them home, it seems like the most realistic option there. I just don't particularly like it because now we're having all this micro analyzing of people's social media activity during the course of the season to try to gauge who was an early boot or not. Outside of that, though, to be honest, it doesn't really change that much. Like, it really doesn't change anything over the course of the season. It just makes it a little bit more likely that we're going to get pretty blatant spoilers out there. But again, this is a format change that ideally they would go back to the vacations and stuff once COVID is done, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really change that much. Now, the other format change that we've heard of, and this one is definitely the biggest one of the bunch, and that is that we are getting a shorter season. Now, Survivor has obviously traditionally been 39 days, with the exception of Australian Outback, which was 42, and if you want to count Blood vs. Water, which was 39 and a half or whatever. But for Survivor 41 and I believe 42 as well, we have already got confirmation that they are going to be 26 days, essentially shortening the production cycle of an episode from 3 days to 2 days. Now, I know a lot of people are upset about this. I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, 39 days is so iconic. For me personally, again, like I don't personally mind it that much. Like, yes, it does kind of irritate me that we're only going to get 2-day cycles for episodes, which does worry me in the sense that are we going to be getting less time for the players to be thinking about their strategies and less time for getting footage to show on the show? I mean, something that happened in Survivor South Africa. In Survivor South Africa Champions, there was a point in the end game where like pretty much every episode was taking place over the course of just one day. And you can very clearly tell in those episodes. And I did feel like it harmed the pacing of the season. I do kind of worry about that with Survivor US, though I will say that I feel like Survivor US just in general probably has a better production team than Survivor South Africa did at a time. I feel like also, obviously, this is going to be 2 days, which I feel like is obviously better than one, but also Survivor US as of recently, I feel like has been struggling to keep a mainline story there with like so much stuff that they could potentially show. So maybe reducing it to 2 days is also beneficial there. Obviously, the main reason they're doing this is for budgetary reasons and for COVID reasons, and in that sense it makes sense. I do wonder if this is going to be the norm moving forward, as to be honest, like I don't think it really matters that much. And I do feel like if this is one of the costs that we're going to have to take for Survivor surviving longer due to it being an even cheaper show to make at this point, I feel like that's a good sacrifice to make. Mind you, again, this could completely change based on how these seasons play out. Maybe we see a very fundamental flaw in having these shorter cycles within the game. But as of right now, I'm not too bothered by this. Again, it sucks to lose the iconic 39 days, but it's like at the end of the day, does it really matter? For me, I'm a lot more upset about format changes like the forced fire making and Edge of Extinction and the new Final Tribal format and like all these other things than I am about 26-day season. To be honest, this change is something that, again, ideally I would keep it at 39 days, but like at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter too much to me. And the final piece of information that we have 100% confirmed from Redmond is the fact that we are no longer getting titles for Survivor seasons. That Survivor 41 here will just be known as Survivor 41. It'll just be known as a new season of Survivor, like typical to how Big Brother has been treated pretty much ever since its infancy, where again, it's just another season. It's a new season of Survivor. We don't need a theme. That's the approach they're going with. I'm of two minds on this. Like, I'm someone that I like having names for seasons. I do like looking back at, like, oh, Survivor 30, Worlds Apart, Survivor 29, San Juan del Sur, 28, Cagayan, like stuff like that. Like, I like relating the season number to a name. Like, that is something I do really like. I like the unique logos that go along with it. However, again, this is a change that I think there are some benefits to. I think the main one is the fact that we're not going to get this shoehorn theme onto the season that we typically get. Because like the way that Survivor's been produced, especially now that they're staying in Fiji, again, due to budgetary reasons, pretty much every season needs to have some sort of twist for them to add a name to it. HHH was the most ridiculous name ever. Like Heroes vs. Healers vs. Hustlers. Like whoever thought that that was a name that we needed to have on the Survivor season. We get these really forced island twists from Ghost Island to Edge of Extinction to Island of the Idols, like these twists that don't really matter and things that I would just prefer not to have. And I think to have them not being limited by being forced to shoehorn a theme into the season, I think is for the better. Now we don't have to hear questions about, like, as a hustler, how does that change your approach to the game? Like, it doesn't matter. Who cares? I do think that is one of the best benefits of this. Again, I'm going to miss the branding of these seasons from a more general standpoint, but again, within the course of the season, I do think it does nothing but help the way the show is going to be put together, and they're not going to have to force certain people onto the cast because they fit the theme. I do think for the most part, this is an overall net positive in terms of a change. Now, that's pretty much everything that Redmond has confirmed himself. Now, there are a couple other rumors out there that I'll be talking about that. Again, 100% take this for a grain of salt. I am not sure these are true. I don't know if these are true, but these are just rumors that are rummaging around out there. But I'm just going to talk about them anyway. First up, the rumor is that we are going to have 3 tribes of 6 to start the game, which again makes sense. I think 3 tribes of 6 makes sense. If you look at the cast, I do feel like there are certain groups of 3 that you can put together. Namely, there are 3 20-year-olds. And I think splitting them up into 1 tribe each feels like the way to go there. I also feel like Survivor, when it comes to 18-person cast, they just genuinely like having 3 tribes. So I don't think this is that unreasonable. Supposedly the color palette is going to be blue, green, yellow, which more than likely means we're probably going to get a red merge buff, as that was the color scheme for Edge of Extinction. Again, just like a very minor rumor out there that I think seems plausible. I mean, we haven't seen that color scheme in over 1 production cycle of the show, so it seems likely that that could be the color scheme. Again, 3 tribes seems to make sense. I think that part of it could be true, but also, again, it could just be someone making it up because it's not hard to make that up. The other rumor out there is one that's a little bit more hazy to me, because I do feel like it seems a bit far-fetched, though it could still happen. Like, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but that is the fact that we are supposedly getting the return of Exile Island, or at least a twist similar to that, and also that we are getting rid of fire tokens. Now, Exile Island coming back seems weird. Now, obviously, it could just be like a different name. It could essentially be like Ghost Island, but not based around old advantages, where you go to an island, you have the chance to win an advantage, either win it or you don't, and then you go back to your tribe. Like, it could be just like that. To which, I mean, sure, I guess. I mean, like, again, something that I don't need in the game. I would actually kind of prefer if it wasn't there, as it just wastes airtime. Plus, also, again, doesn't that kind of ruin the point of getting rid of the season names if we do have another island here anyway? I don't know. Like, I just personally don't want another Exile Island-esque twist. I don't feel like it's necessary, and I feel like it would end up wasting time on the show. But the added note of having no fire tokens is interesting, considering how high Jeff seemed to be on fire tokens coming out of Winners at War. Mind you, he was also high on Edge of Extinction. Now we've heard it from Jeff himself that there is no Edge of Extinction moving forward, due to him having heard, obviously, the very vocal fan base that is very anti-Edge of Extinction. But I don't know if he ever changed his mind on fire tokens as drastically. Now, maybe fire tokens could be like this twist that comes back every other season. Like, it's not going to be on every season of the show. But for them to drop it right away seems to be kind of underwhelming to me. I do kind of like the idea of fire tokens. I just don't feel like it was executed properly on Winners at War. And I do feel like if they could possibly reformat it in a way, kind of make it similar to how Garnets worked on the Genius, I feel like that could add an interesting wrinkle to the game. The problem is the amount of screen time it would need to be fully shown. I think that was another thing with the fire tokens, that there were times where like fire tokens would just change hands and we had no clue where that happened. And I feel like to dedicate the time to doing so and like properly showing fire tokens and its full potential would just take up so much screen time that isn't even worth it to begin with. So fire tokens as a whole, again, like I'm not anti the idea. I do think it has potential, but in terms of them getting rid of it, I could see that being the case. I mean, I know Jeff was high on it at the time of Survivor 40, but considering how the sense I get is that they want to streamline this season a bit more, I wouldn't be too surprised if they try to get rid of fire tokens. And with that, that's pretty much all of the rumors that are out there about Survivor 41, at least anything that's like somewhat plausible. And I'm really excited for the season. I mean, obviously, this is the first Survivor US season that we're going to be getting in well over a year by the time the season actually ends up coming out. And I feel like from everything that we've heard, there is a lot of potential with this season. I mean, the sense that I'm getting is that they're trying to start a new era of the show. I mean, as they should be, obviously. We just had Survivor 40, Winners at War, this kind of conclusive season for the show up until that point. And with the added breaking off point of there literally being a year break in between the show, I feel like this seems like the perfect spot to kind of go back to basics. Like, obviously they won't fully, they're not going to get rid of idols. They're not going to get rid of all these different format changes that they've made. But I do feel like this feels like the start of a new era. This feels like them trying to streamline this show a bit more by not clogging it up with these unnecessary twists. And I feel like that is for the betterment of the show moving forward. Now, I'm sure we're still going to get all-star seasons at points, and they're going to kind of return to the old format with that. I'm sure we're going to get names for all-star seasons. It's not like they're going to have Survivor Second Chance 2 and just call it Survivor 44 for whatever reason. Like, we're definitely going to get names and themes and twists at certain points, but for this season alone, it does feel like a more streamlined experience, which I am personally excited for. But that is essentially the video here, and kind of just a roundup of my thoughts on everything Survivor 41 related up to this point. Obviously, I will be covering Survivor 41 once the season starts later down the road. Also, Big Brother is starting relatively soon. Going to be covering that as well. Also, a little thing I want to plug here that I've been doing for about a month now, but I've never actually been able to talk about it on an actual Survivor video just yet, is that I have started a Twitch channel at twitch.tv/TheMoranianReview, where I do some late night streams, typically around 11 o'clock Eastern time, couple times a week, playing games that I will probably end up doing some sort of video on the channel, while also just talking about whatever the chat wants to talk about, whether that be reality TV or video games. Moving forward into Big Brother and Survivor season, I'm sure I'll be talking about a lot of things from the live feeds and talking about the latest episodes that I wouldn't typically do on this channel, largely because like I don't have the time to make individual videos about every episode. So again, if you want to follow me on Twitch, that'll be cool. If you don't, you can even go to my VOD channel. I do have the Moranian Review Live where I post all the VODs afterwards. Check them out there. Again, just a little bonus thing that I've been doing that doesn't really affect how this channel is going to be run, but just thought I should let you guys know. But for now, those are essentially my thoughts on Survivor 41. Don't know if I'll do a video like this for Survivor 42, as if we just end up getting a cast, there obviously isn't that much to talk about. But if we do get any new format changes that go along with that season, maybe there will be another video moving down the road. But for now, that's the video. Thank you for watching.